we're continuing today on our theme of tradition. We have a special guest today from India. We're going to talk a little bit about her traditions from India, and we're also going to talk a little bit about family tradition in general and the tradition of the family meal specifically. So, Tina.
So welcome, Aditi. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Aditi came to this country 30 years ago, is that correct? Mm-hmm. And of course, being from India, where there are wonderful traditions, you have brought some of these traditions with you. What are the traditions that you hold most dear, that you've managed to maintain living in this country?
Okay. One of the traditions that we have is, India is a land of festivals, so there's so many. And one of the big ones is the Festival of Lights. It's also the Indian New Year. It comes right around October, November, because we follow the lunar year, so it's different, usually just before Thanksgiving. And so, we have our house all decorated with lights, and it's all about food. I cook for about a week.
Wow.
And have anywhere from 100 to 200 people.
You're kidding? You invite people from anybody? You invite friends and neighbors?
Yeah. It's,
nice.
Sometimes it's an open house, so people are stopping by, the neighbors especially.
Oh, that's great.
And the kids get involved. They're helping me when they were home. They would help me cook with the meals, with the food, festive foods that we do. And some of the food that we have with the traditions, and especially with Diwali, the Festival of Lights, is with the 5 elements. So you cook about 5 different snacks. So each night I'm cooking different things, and then the meal is like a 9-course meal.
Wow.
So
and it's also a time to reflect about the past year, and do you make New Year's resolutions?
Yes. And the New Year was, good over evil, celebrating that too. So it's sort of just, renewal, count your blessings, and then
Thanksgiving, a little bit like our Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So giving thanks for the year that passed.
Absolutely.
And all the blessings.
And then it follows for us right at, with Thanksgiving after that, which is another tradition that we've maintained.
And what kind of food is it that is eaten?
With the snacks, 5 elements that I was telling you, it's always about balance. Indian food is always sweet, savory, a little bit of bitter. So it's kind of like it reflects life. So
and I have to mention this quickly. You were saying that you should always have 2 bracelets because Indian culture really emphasizes symmetry.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So there is a lot of symbolism in all of those things. So jewelry and also with food.
Absolutely. I think every single thing has been sort of thought out and laid out, and it's it has to match. Like you're talking about that, even for when you get married, they look at your stars, especially when they had these arranged marriages. They looked at the, whether you were compatible or not, looking at your horoscope and stars.
Yes.
And so a lot of people think like that's so weird, but if that didn't match, that
a couple wouldn't do well together.
But it's also a whole attitude about life to be. To really want to make sure there is symmetry makes you lead a much more of a purpose-driven life, and you're very conscious of what you do, right? Because if everything needs to be in balance,
absolutely,
then everything you do needs to be in balance somehow.
Yeah,
right? It avoids extremes in any direction. It also helps with a better marriage. If you start with the horoscopes, it just keeps you aligned somehow.
You're supposed to be together.
It's funny with my husband and I. It wasn't an arranged marriage, but we looked at our horoscopes after the fact, after we got married, and it did match. 36 and 36. So
really?
Yeah, it's kind of rare. So I guess I'm still married. So I guess
that's a good sign. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do people react to you? You're an immigrant and you're in a small town. Are people open to this new tradition of coming to see you, or do you on the Festival of Lights, or do you just invite other Indian?
I think I have a mix. Sometimes, I have my regular Indian friends that'll say, "To see you next year."
Okay, they come every year.
Yeah, they don't need to be. And my kids' friends every year has also, depending on high school or college, they come. And I've had people from work come and enjoy it too. That Hong who's filming has been to
That's great.
the
What a
Festival of
gift
Lights,
to people that you would share that with them.
That's right. It's a very intimate thing. Do your children cherish it because they're American-born?
Absolutely, yeah. And sometimes it's been hard for them to come when they were in college or otherwise, but they make it an effort. Yeah.
So it's all week or one night, or how do you do it?
It's 5 days, so it's all about, sometimes with Indian festivals, it's all about the elements, so it's usually like odd numbers. It's 5, 3, or 9.
Yes.
So there's always that, and then so it's 5 days.
5, 3, or 9. Everything. It's like on a. You mean like the 5 days? It refers to the element.
Right.
What do you mean the elements? What are you referring to when you say the
So
elements?
it's the air, water,
Okay,
fire.
that's what I thought
So
you
like
meant.
something that for life. So
Yes.
ether, and what's the fourth one? So air, water, fire,
rock. No. Heat. No. I don't know.
So ether, and then like the universe. So it's like 5 elements. It's
Yes.
and there's always this one god that's worshipped first. So he's the elephant god. His name is Ganesh. So any festival, he's the first one that you pray to, invite. And again, anybody, the guest coming to your house, you just treat them as like a god. So
Wow.
it's just any guest that comes in is an auspicious sign. It's abundance. You're sharing that. You have it, so you're able to share. So there's a lot of symbolisms. It's fun. It's
and
laughter.
now I have to jump right into the hospitality. And
I
I do want to get back to the family meal though, because that has so many different facets to it. But in terms of hospitality, I just learned this quite recently. The pineapple, displayed right here in gold, is actually a sign of hospitality in New England, which I myself, who is an immigrant here since 20 years, did not really know that. And the reason being that captains from the New England area in colonial times would visit the Caribbean and come back, of course, with spices and special foods and fruit and pineapples too, I suppose. And pineapple was a very, very popular fruit. And according to legend, the captains would spear a pineapple on their fence in front of their home as a sign that they had returned from their voyage, and they would invite their friends and family to stop in and share some of that food and listen to the tales of the trip. And so the pineapple, if you visit Nantucket, actually, you see it displayed on many homes. And it's even carved into beds, 4-poster beds, in many of the old inns in New England. So it was always a sign of kind of welcome and inviting friends. And then it also became a status symbol. And hostesses would display a pineapple in the middle of their table when they had guests over to show that they were really willing to do something very special for their guests and to make everybody feel very welcome. And I even read that grocers would rent out pineapples to people who couldn't actually afford to buy one and consume it. So there we have the pineapple.
You can rent it and give it back.
So we have real pineapples as decoration, and then I brought a little pineapple napkin ring also. It's actually quite pretty. It's much prettier than the real pineapple. But
very nice.
So hospitality is a huge part of traditions. Right?
Oh, that's so interesting. And I didn't know that.
And inviting people in to share a meal with your family and in your home. And I think it's fantastic how you do that for the Festival of Light, which you have your family as the center, but then open your home to others.
Is it a sit-down meal that you invite people to, or do you have like a buffet?
I think just, because of the number of people that I have. 200
people you mentioned.
It's a buffet. But otherwise, traditionally in India, in the old days, you would sit down on the floor and you'd have like a banana leaf as part. I think that's where the disposable plate started.
Oh, really?
I would much prefer the banana leaf.
It's
save time for sure. So is that how you grew up? That's how you grew up in that sort of setting. How about your own family that you raised? You have 3 children.
I have 3 children. Yeah, I have 2 boys and a girl.
Did you adopt the Indian style dining, or did you? Not adopt, but take with you the Indian style or adopt the American style?
I think for the festive meals, when it's just our family, we try to do that. I even have the banana leaves that I bring. You can buy it frozen here. It's not the best way, but you can.
Gosh, I've never seen those.
So you can buy it at the I think Asian markets, the Indian store.
Okay.
So I do that as because it's becoming rare for me to have everybody together with everything
traditional
that they do.
meal, traditional plates.
And there's a science to how the food is served, and we are vegetarians, so there's like very specific ways, and the courses. It's always traditionally the women folk, like anywhere else, serve the food, and the males the male folks would sit down, the guests would sit down first, and then they would take pride in serving all the food, and then
That they made.
at the end, sit down and eat themselves.
So this show is about, of course, making choices as women, and one of these choices would be to maintain these traditions and knowing why we maintain these traditions. And as you were raising your children, who are, of course, now a little bit older and who do a lot of their own things, to you that was important to maintain these Indian traditions around mealtime.
Absolutely. I think, especially now I know that they're going to be integrating into the American culture. And so it was really important for me to have them, as they're getting older, they recognize the value of it. Maybe not so much as they were growing up, it was just something that they did. But they do recognize it now, so they ask more questions. And so it just feels for me that I've done something right, because it's important to keep your culture. They don't get to visit very often,
right?
And
you don't want them to forget.
So it keeps them connected to their home, also through these wonderful memories, right? And I think growing up, it gives children a great sense of stability, also.
Absolutely.
To have an ongoing ritual around a family meal, where the family comes together.
Especially this traditional. Did you have a family meal every week? Or every day? How did you do it?
Again, typical American family. After a while, with the sports and the music and the schedules, it was hard.
Yes. And
if we could, as they were growing up, on the weekends, if we could get together and sit down, and make it into an elaborate meal, it was just, we'd start lunch and sometimes be there till dinner time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never done that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's you too, Tina, right?
Yes, I grew up in Europe, where sports wasn't really such a big thing. You would do your sports at school, or you would have a gym at school, but you wouldn't be involved in these team sports. So we were always home in the evening, and every single day we would come together and have dinner. And that's I think that's my best memory, really, of growing up.
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense.
It was at 7:00 every day.
Everybody gathered around
that
the
we
table.
would all sit around.
Same thing with us too. So how about you? Was it similar?
Well, as an American, a full-blooded American, we tried. I think my mom tried to make dinner time at 5:30 for us. It was interesting because my father would get home around that time, 5:45. But he and my mother ate together.
Okay.
They ate separately. I think just for peace of mind. I was one of 6 children, and it was just kind of chaotic for the first 15 years. And although we always saw my father and my mother, they had sort of private time.
Which is also important for younger children to understand.
But the dinner table was a little chaotic, because my mother was serving us. We had little children. I only remember having little children around. At the family meal. But then as we got older, I know my mother tried to instigate the Sunday meal. So 2:00 sort of Sunday meal where we were all together, sitting together. So we tried, but it was challenging. I think it is challenging as for a mother who's a lot to do.
Yes.
But I do love now as an adult, I don't have children, but I just love sitting at a table with a family or with friends.
And to talk. And of course, children who are under 10 are not going to sit and talk
Too
and have
long.
a conversation.
Right.
So, but what it offers is a fantastic teaching moment, at least sometimes, to sit down and make sure your child can sit at a table and use a knife and fork.
Yes, that's right. To teach them polite
and to be able to talk about things, without becoming rambunctious and throwing food. I have 4 boys and a girl.
Right. Do you ask them questions about their day? Like, how do you control?
I do, but that I have to say, it's still very difficult at dinner time. And I usually do feed them in the kitchen.
Right.
So they're sitting at the bar, and I'm feeding them, and I just give orders,
Right. And they
sit
are
down,
involved in
don't push each other. It's like I just walk back and forth. But then around Christmas time, Thanksgiving
or Sundays,
when we do something special, we do all sit together
in the dining room.
Yes, and I really look forward to being able, once they are a little bit bigger, to really come together and show them what it's like to have a longer conversation. And we had some guests over Christmas time, and I could see how the older boys were really curious to listen into the adult conversation. And they could learn from that too. We actually had somebody visiting from Africa, from the Republic of Congo. And children are like sponges. Once you get them to sit still and actually listen, they are really curious. And that's what a table does, right? It stabilizes them. and they can, at some point will be able to participate.
And learning to listen is a very good,
absolutely.
A very good.
I think Sunday
skill.
meals that you were talking about.
Yes.
For me, growing up in India, Sunday was at my grandmother's house, and we would go there, spend the day. And she was this, it was an outdoor kitchen in a courtyard. She was the queen, and she would be responsible for the main meal. But everybody else, I don't know, like we used to have like 100 people every Sunday, all cousins.
Oh, wonderful.
She had 12 kids, so
wow.
It was a big family, and it was just something that we, I don't remember not spending a Sunday.
With
it
your
was
family.
rare that
you wouldn't schedule a baseball game or a
it was
soccer
so Sunday
game.
was at grandma's, and that was it.
That
it
was
was
it.
like
Oh,
she, it
wonderful.
was just
That's really
and
something.
I didn't know how to cook at all, but she would just call me and say, I don't want you to learn how to cook or anything, but just like watch what I'm doing. And some of it I still remember now.
Really?
I didn't really learn how to cook till I came here to this country 30 years ago. But
and now you have a cooking show.
Yeah. This was my experiment. I just remembered, okay, what did she say? What did she throw in there? And
so she did all the cooking for 100 people?
She
must have had
yeah. I mean,
no problem for her.
Yeah, I think.
Wow, that's a great grandmother.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, this might be a good time to talk a little bit about what the experts say about the family meal, because it sounds like you both tried and experienced it in your own families. But this Miriam Weinstein, the author of The Surprising Power of the Family Meal, says, sitting down to a meal together draws a line around us. It encloses us and strengthens the bonds that connect us with other members of our self-defined clan. Sounds like you were part of a clan, shutting out the rest of the world. So that being said, what would you say to, I don't know, women out there who are trying to make this happen with your own experiences and with your own, reality check of today's life? What would you say to them? Tina, what would you say?
I think that that's what we do as a family. We come together. And if we can come together and have a good time and focus on one another, and that is what a family meal does, it helps us focus on one another, then there is no family. So I think we're quite convinced that it is important for certainly our children to experience family, but of course also we want to have a family, rather than be linked to a family and have this kind of a connection. And if these traditions fall away, then there's really this question, well, what makes a family? If you never see each other, then...
Right. I suppose some people think they're sharing time when they're watching a baseball game or a football game together.
Yes.
When they're in the car traveling to, I don't know where, to their beach house or to a family event. But what do you think?
With if you did the cars, for me, some of it was just managing those kids,
Yes.
Right now, I'm sure you have the games and things for them to keep busy. For us, it was, it would be fun.
Well, they're going to kill each other there in the back. That's not family time.
So even now, I know that.
It's like you end up saying, if you're older, you get into prison for doing this. That's a family time in the car.
Right. So there's something special about the famame meal, I would say, because you're kind of forced to, as you say, focus on each other.
I think it's also better nutrition. You cook.
You're eating.
Yeah, and they participate. It's not like you're sitting in front of TV and eating something and not paying attention to what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, there's something beautiful about the meal, right? That you can appreciate and love.
And you get them to, help maybe set the table, clean up, not so much anything else.
I think it's also really important for marriages to maintain this. Because what's the point of parents staying together for their children if they never really do anything together with their children? If they're just dividing the driving or attending games, then really what's the point? So I think it helps marriages for couples to realize we're doing this together. We're creating this home and we are maintaining these traditions together. And if we split, it's gone.
Right. No, I think that's very important. Another quote from this article, we're not just like animals, even though it's the basic animal form of caring, sharing. I mean, that's what animals do. But it's the most central of all our family bonds, the family meal, even for animals. I mean, they eat together, right? But we're much more than animals, right? We're sharing, as you said, we're sharing stories about the day. We're asking the other person about his or her day. We're trying to get them to say please and thank you. I mean, that's when they're really small. So I wonder about it. I mean, part of it is a cultural phenomenon, right? That they're busy at mealtime. It used to be that even if they were in sports, it would never touch that mealtime. So what kind of choices, if we're going to talk about choices, what kind of choices can women children make about the family meal. I know some families, because they're Latin American and they don't mind this, but their family meal is at 9 or 11.
Yes.
Because that's the only
they
time.
have to get it in no matter what.
Right. They wouldn't sacrifice it, that's for sure. They wait till the father gets home or whatever, the kids get home, but they have it very late. So
Well, I think for many families, from my experience, it's about just trying a little harder. And I feel almost sometimes families tend to avoid situations like that. They tend to avoid being stuck at home with one another. And it takes a lot of work. And if children are younger and they're misbehaving, it really means you have to have discipline and still create this sense of love and harmony.
Yes.
And there's nothing harder as a parent than doing that.
When
Teaching your children while also showing them love. Right? And I think many people, they just get so pulled into all these activities that ends up being easier for them.
And they focus more on the children, maybe getting, I don't know, into colleges. I don't know why people do so many activities.
Yes, well, people are overactive.
Yeah. I think
in
one
many
rule
ways.
that I have is like, that's not the time to, criticize. That's not the time to yell.
That's a good one.
Or just kind of keep it to a conversation. Sometimes they'll organically pick a topic, and I like to talk a lot. But at that time, I try to pay attention to try to listen to what they're saying. I just love the interaction. Now that they're older, they sort of have this little world that the three of them get into. So my husband and I kind of step back and watch. It's just a beautiful thing.
It must be a great joy.
Yeah, and I wish we could do it every night or as often as possible. It doesn't happen, but at least that once a week when the kids are home,
they're all home together.
It's like we have to go out, and now that they can go out at 9 o'clock or whatever, I'm fine. Dinner is at 7.
Right.
And we make an effort, and sometimes I hear the complaints about it's cold to sit down at the table. I'm like, let's make it warm. Let's throw the candles in.
That's great. Candles are great.
Yeah,
I think candles add a lot to a dinner table.
I had a candle in that candle holder. It was too tall for the camera, so I apologize.
That is really a candle holder. Okay. So do you use candles, Tina, with your little ones, or?
Only if we eat in the dining room.
Okay. Do you like candles?
At Christmas time, at New Year's Eve, we had a ton of candles.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
They're kind of dangerous, it's true, with a 3-year-old.
No, but I even put them on a tree.
That's
just for Christmas Eve, though.
German
they learn, though. They know,
they're
it's
not
fire,
so tiny. They're not dangerous, right.
But I think, again, what's great about America is that we have all these different cultures. And even though we might get off base a little bit and forget about traditions and get too active with little things we do in sports, we can always again learn.
Readjust,
cultures.
Try something new.
Right,
schedule it in.
Right, and it's wonderful that people from other countries maintain these traditions.
They tend to be better at it.
And maintain their culture, and because we can all benefit from that.
I love the Italian tradition too. They have this Sunday meal as well. I'm sure a lot of cultures do. But it's a long meal. It's, it starts with, I don't know what they start with, bread and cheese, and goes to nuts. But there's a few hours, and everybody knows they're committed for those hours. I wanted to, you brought the napkin with the napkin ring. I think that's another really lovely thing, to teach children young to use a cloth napkin. We tend to be like a throwaway kind of society, right? We want paper plates, no dishes, and it's understandable. But once in a while, to have the kids sit down to a really nice table setting is... You teach them to use the utensils, which is important, right? But also the cloth napkin, it gives a sense of formality, because it seems to me that children and adults act better when they're dressed up and when they're in a dressy situation, a formal situation. So that might be another experiment, is that once a month, or like the holidays you mentioned, that everybody dresses up for dinner, and it's... like they did in the old Europe.
And also involve the children, involve them setting the table and taking pride in that. And I could see with my own children that they're really starting to enjoy that. And then I test them. Okay, where do you put the knife? And then they're very proud that they remember where to put the knife.
That's great.
The social skills too. It's so important to have that, because when you go in, a lot of the kids are put in these situations where they have to go to a formal dinner, and they're awkward about it.
And that's actually with so many, probably most traditions and rituals attached to those traditions. In fact, they help us in situations, right? Like when you are showing hospitality, the way you show hospitality can help you in tremendous ways. What if you're a very shy person and awkward? But if you have a tradition, you know what to do to make the other person feel welcome. It doesn't doesn't become a new decision each time. Okay, how do I act in this situation?
Right.
But there are certain signs and symbols that you know, and hopefully the other people understand.
Now, you were saying before the show that both of you kind of lament the American, I don't know what you want to call it, the passivity or the reluctance, I guess, to invite people to their home. Maybe it's because they're shy, as you said, modest and shy. But when you invite people to your home, you're happy to do it, right? That's part of who you are.
Yeah. There's no sense of real privacy there, you know?
Right.
People walk in and you're just present. You just drop everything else. And I was talking about, you know, if you are supposed to go to a place and somebody comes to your house, you call that other person and let them know that, hey, we have a guest, you know, we'll be late, and nobody's going to...
And you don't resent it.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
They don't resent it.
And if your home is an extension of yourself, you know, you have people come, you want to make them feel welcome. And you can be proud that somebody wants to come to your house, and you can show off your house or your home and your hospitality.
Your
I think
cooking
sometimes
skills.
the other thing here is that, you know,
not cooking, so it could be something simple,
Right.
right? You can make people feel welcome in very simple ways. And I'm not such a good cook as you, so people will have to contend with far simpler fare. But still, you know, you can make them feel good.
Lovely.
About
I've been to Tina's house many times, and she always makes me feel very welcome.
Yeah.
With tea and cookies and cakes.
But then another thing, and we had mentioned that before the show, and I do have to say that now, if we do invite people to our house and we offer them something, I can feel offended if they completely refuse. And I know that many people in American culture feel that it's just a sign of modesty, you know, no thank you, I'm fine.
Don't want to put someone out. We're very efficient.
Yes, but if somebody offers you something, it's again a connection, and that person in a way is refusing that connection, unawares, quite obviously. But you know, you want to make them feel welcome, and when they feel welcome, you feel good that you made them feel welcome.
It's funny how you say that in Indian culture you cannot refuse, no matter, you know, you might have just had a meal and you go to somebody's house. If you refuse it, you're offending. So therefore you sit down, you eat whether you like it or not. You can eat a little bit and say refuse after that, but you don't, when somebody offers you something,
it's rude not to.
You just take it. You don't insult the host or, you know, so you just don't do it. When you go into somebody's house, you just expect it. So you know enough not to go to a restaurant before you go to somebody's house.
Because you know you have to eat a lot. Or you don't go to somebody's house and say, no, thank you, I'm just on a diet. I'm not having anything.
That's the worst thing you can
That's
say.
terrible.
Good to know.
And you always cook extra for
whoever might show up.
I know that my mother, when she cooked it, at least 2 or 3 people, the meal, if it was extra, we would just give it to the help that was the domestic help that was at home. So the food never went to waste, but you always had 2 or 3 extra servings for that person.
Yes. So I see we all love talking about food here, right? We're talking about traditions, but we keep getting back to the food, which is so important.
Right.
But I think also what's important about traditions, it's a kind of ritual. And it also, it's how you relate to food that's really impacted. So if you're just eating on the run all the time, and you're just grabbing a slice of pizza, that's not a healthy eating habit. But if you make a food something special, and then again you sit down, you share with family or friends, your attitude about food is quite changed, and you're actually enjoying food much more. Right? And you might still be eating a little too much here or there, but in general, at least you're enjoying it.
Well, it's a shared experience. It's not just me, my favorite food, whatever I want to eat.
Yes.
Did you ever? The movie that I think is so telling on this subject is Babette's Feast. Have you seen Babette's Feast?
I haven't seen it.
It's about a Norwegian or Swedish.
It's Danish.
Danish. Thank you. Tina's somewhat Danish. A little island, right? And they had hardly any food, fish and
a very, very simple life.
Simple life, simple food, and this French cook comes along and teaches them how to live, basically.
Yes, and she wins a lottery and spends all the money she won on this fantastic feast. I'm sure it's at least as nice as your Feast of Lights, but it was just once in a lifetime thing.
Right.
And everybody in this little village comes together. People who hate each other, who don't talk to one another, but they all come around this beautiful table and this amazing food, and everybody is just warmed by it. And they start to feel this love for one another.
You see a total transformation.
A total transformation in this whole town, and
it's a beautiful table. I mean, it's like everything
Yes,
about the meal is beautiful. It's not just the best food, but the best possible setting.
And it turns out she spent all the money she had just for that one meal. But it shows you the importance of that coming
it was
together.
extravagant. Yeah, it was really beautiful. It's a beautiful.
I'll be sure to watch it.
Yes.
But so I think rituals, again, are important. And sometimes we create our own little rituals. I know when you're dieting, it is really helpful if you have a ritual around eating. And it's not just, oh, I'm not going to eat anything for 3 weeks now. It's about, okay, I'm going to make a nice lunch, and I'm going to make a salad, and I have my drink here, and a little yogurt, whatever. It could be something healthy but tasty, and you eat it and enjoy it, and that's a kind of ritual. And you can do that for 3 weeks, and you will have lost a lot more.
No cookies in between.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Joe. You don't need all that. I do.
But rituals can help you even by creating or just kind of
treating
learning from the rituals you already have or traditions and transforming them a little bit to suit your particular needs.
It's more dignified, right? I mean, I eat a lot on the run, and I know it's unhealthy, but dignified to sit down and eat a meal versus taking it in the car, or sometimes Europeans tell me that they just can't believe how we eat in the car. I mean, it's awful. People don't do that in other cultures.
Well, it's much more enjoyable if you're sitting.
I mean, if you're hungry, you'd probably eat a fruit or something, but then I have to go home and eat a meal. Otherwise, I don't feel good.
You feel like you're not.
Yeah, even like you said, like a salad, but I want to sit down and eat it when I go home. It's one thing when I'm at work or,
snacking
in the car, but it's important for me to feel consciously good about it, because then it feels like
And you had a real meal, and you can feel good about that.
That's right. That's right. Well, I know we're taking a lot of time. We have a lot to say, but we're so grateful to you today, Aditi. I didn't even introduce you properly. Aditi is the Medfield TV director of the station here. So we're grateful for her time and for you.
Actually, we're grateful to her having us here. Thank you, Val.
It's great. I think this is a great show, Life Choices, and
We're trying. Yeah, well, we appreciate your input, and we hope to see you again. And thank you for your time today.
Production support provided by Medfield.tv. Access to our community.
Hi, I'm Stacy Peasley, and you are watching Medfield.tv.